lived in Somerville since 1979. On College Ave, there was the Woodbridge Hotel, and on the bottom level of the Woodbridge, there was music, and not the Patriots player, but another guy named Jim Plunkett used to play down there. And around the corner from the Woodbridge was a Grange Hall that's now luxury condos.
And what's there now?
Where the Woodbridge was, I believe it's the senior center.
The senior housing.
Senior housing that's there. There was also Corcoran's was a Notions store, and which was down at the end where Goodwill is now. And Gorin's was the department store with the escalator that's right next to the Erico Photo Studio building. Let's see, what else was there? There was Ted and Libby's was a diner, I think. And there was a late night diner that's where Dolly.
Yeah.
Dolly's. We had somebody talking about Dolly.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to Dolly?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Late at night.
When it was open.
In the early 80s.
Well, I moved here in 1980 and I lived on Newton Street in Union Square. And then I moved up to Davis Square in, when did I move here? I guess 1982. I must have come here and I lived right on Park Ave when they were blasting for the T. So the T wasn't even here yet. I'm a CPA. I've done many things in Somerville, but I have my offices right here in Davis Square. So, and I've been an accountant. I used to work at Somerville City Hall for the mayor back in the early 2000s. First Dorothy and then the current mayor, Joe. So I straddled the two administrations. I was in the community development office, the finance director. So I was only there for 2 years. No big deal. Yeah. Well, I stayed here because she was here when we first met in 1982.
And I wouldn't move.
And I tried to get her to move, like to Vermont or Gloucester, Ipswich, and I would walk up and down College Ave with the bus fumes and I go, my God, why am I living here? Why do I live in the city? And then we decided to have kids, and I realized having kids, this is a really great place to raise kids. And both our kids have gone to Somerville Public Schools, and our daughter's going to her junior year at the high school, and it's a great community. It's just become part of me.
We've got a very nice adoptive community that's in Somerville. Kids from all different parts of the world, so it's very supportive in that way on an individual basis. It's probably more challenging in the schools as kids kind of go, what? What? You were born where? Those are your parents? Really? Are you sure? And we're sure, they're sure, but it can be confusing for kids. Yeah.
And I also think, when our kids were little and in elementary school, there weren't a lot of kids in their school who had two moms or two dads, had gay parents. So, but they were at the choice program at the Healy School, so we used to go in every year and do a whole little thing about adoption. And they had the little group of kids that they were in school with, especially our daughters, some peers who were also adopted or came from families with same-sex parents. So. And the school system, it was really supportive. The teachers were great. The community, part of the reason why we chose the choice program, because it was a community of parents we knew would be supportive of us as a family. We also live in a really awesome neighborhood, and our neighbors have always been great about us being in the neighborhood. And, when we bought our house there, and, we're raising our kids together. And it's just been a really great community for us to live in as a couple and a family.
Probably in the early 90s, I was on the Somerville Human Rights Commission. I was part of a group in the 80s called Somerville Women and Children's Voices. I've done a lot of advocating. What did each of these groups do? Somerville Women's. It really was a focus on childcare and appropriate early childcare education. So I was working at an organization called the Childcare Resource Center, which served Somerville as well as Cambridge, and looked at developing really good, safe, strong childcare places for families. And so we worked with programs that still exist today, like Open Center for Children and Elizabeth Peabody House. And so how is it that you make it both affordable as well as accessible, as well as paying workers a reasonable salary? I mean, there are a number of things that are going well, but in terms of affordable housing, there needs to be more affordable housing that we don't have. In terms of, you know, community policing is much better than it used to be, but I think it's an area that could still be expanded, particularly in creating those relationships between the police department and youth. I think that when you think about folks who have been here for a long time, some of the amenities that maybe I appreciate are not ones that they're going to be using. So the Fluff Festival, ArtBeat. Yeah, I mean, most of our neighbors have never been to ArtBeat. So it's not part of their repertoire.
Yeah.
Would they go see the Sunsetters at different points in time? Yes.
Do they go to the fireworks? Yeah.
Yes. Those are things that are universal appeal. So how is it that you find those things that are of universal appeal and expand on them?
I had a hand weaving business, but my studio was in Arlington. There wasn't really, it was back in the like 80s, 90s. So I was part of the Cambridge Artists Co-op and in Cambridge and Harvard Square and the Christmas store and Christmas secrets and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't really, I did some art classes in Somerville. There were some, like a dyeing studio right here in this building right here where I took some shibori classes. And, so there were things going on, but not in the organized way that there is. I mean, there was the Somerville Arts Council, but it was more of, it was tinier, there weren't the events that there are now. One of the early, our daughter has dog tags since 1999, the year she was born. So we actually have to go get her one. And we came down here one year with her when she was like 2, and they had somebody towing a canoe. It was really, really hot, and they had a canoe, and they were towing it around with a bicycle, and she went for a ride in the canoe.
With her bear? With
her teddy bear, yeah. So, but I think that ArtBeat's really changed too. I mean, it's much more of sort of a craft show, and there's still the performances, but when it first started, it was very performance oriented. We would go and it'd be really hot, and we'd get something to eat, and we'd listen to some music, and then we'd go into the Somerville Theater and watch whatever was going on there, so we could cool off.
And there'd be dance performances not just in the Somerville Theater, but also in the different plazas. There would be a range of dance. There was a belly dancer one year who had big swords, and for some reason she was fascinated with our son, and she was like dancing with the swords right all around him. Yeah. He was just kind of like, okay. Well, he was 3 probably, so he was just like swords and dancing. Okay.
I worry that Somerville's going to be, it's going to be a very sort of, it's not going to be affordable. Like I'm seeing all the things that are happening in Davis Square. Like now there's not even a Dunkin' Donuts for senior citizens to hang out in and have their coffee in the morning, and with McDonald's gone, they don't have that anymore. And I'm afraid Davis Square is going to turn into another Harvard Square, and that we're going to lose, that sort of vibrant Somerville community feeling that we have now. And I've seen it happen a lot. Like families come in, we have young couples who live here, they have their kids and they move to the suburbs. And we've seen a lot of people that we knew that had young kids, and the minute their kids hit some school level where they didn't want to be in the Somerville public schools, or they'd either pay for private school or they'd move to Cambridge, and I just feel like it's becoming a place where it's really affordable for people who have like 2 incomes and professional jobs, but people who want to live here and raise their families, it's really tough to buy a house. The houses in our neighborhood are selling for $1 million. It's just, and then people are spending $500,000 to renovate them. So I'm afraid we're going to lose some of that diversity, economic diversity, cultural, racial diversity that we have in the city right now. And I think one of the things our daughter loves about, high school's hard, going to an urban public high school is hard, but she loves the diversity at Somerville High. I mean, it's just, I think of everything that she likes and doesn't like about the high school. I mean, that's the one thing that she really says is the best thing about going to Somerville High. And I don't know how long we're going to have that.
The one word that describes Somerville to me right now is vibrant.
The one word that describes Somerville to me now is diverse.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You thought you had nothing to say.